off as a heterosexual mother, wife, and definitely civil servant. Well, I am the Director of Youth Services for the City of Worcester. I have been the director for about a year. My own experiences around sexuality were my gender, my race, and then the religion I grew up in. I'm originally from Ecuador, from a Latino family. I am the youngest of 3 older brothers, so as you can imagine, I had a lot of parents growing up. My brothers are 12, 10, and 8 years older than me, so I was the little sister. We grew up in a very religious community where we didn't socialize with anybody that wasn't part of our religion and practice the same belief system. I didn't have a lot of exposure to different ways of thinking or even being able to comfortably talk about my sexuality or questions I might have had about things I saw or things I heard on TV or things my friends said. You know, this is during the 80s. There was definitely a lot of prostitution that was very public in those days. On my way to school, I would see things in the cars I would walk by. I got approached so many times trying to convince me to sell sex. So it was a lot to be exposed to and not have places to have these conversations, especially as you grow up in like urban communities. One of my first experiences, my brother got one of those, they were called hot boxes, right? And they descrambled and allowed you to watch all the channels. And as a kid, I'm like, click, click, what's that? And then you're trying to figure it out. Then you get all these ideas of what you think you saw happen, and then you go talk to your friends who are also people that are completely uninformed, and then you're just swapping misinformation and just taking it as fact. The biggest challenge was thinking about like masturbation. The boys at school talked about it so much, so overwhelming to hear them talk about it because you would hear people say things about women or girls and without regard that you were in the room and that it made you uncomfortable. Hearing stories about what they thought about and where they did it, I think those are definitely the places where I felt the most discomfort. I got pregnant when I was 16. It was one of the hardest to cope with because of my family, like social dynamic, religion, things like that. So I didn't tell anybody I was pregnant until after my mom directly asked me because I was so big. I can't believe I would even ask you, think something like this of you, but are you pregnant? And then to be like, yes, was horrible and got erased from my church in a public vote while I was there. I had to apologize to my father in a very humiliating way. My brother stopped speaking to me for a few months. School, you get stigmatized and walking around with like this big bump under my shirt. People start to think that you're a waste and you no longer have the capacity to meet any of the expectations that they had set for you prior because you made a decision like this. You know, as I think back on decision, like what decision did I make? Like what choices was I given at that time to be able to make good decisions for myself? Who informed me? What education did I have? What spaces did I have to have conversations? All those things were taken away from me the moment that they said that this is wrong and you shouldn't just do it and that's it. Abstinence, you know? And so for a long time, I carried that guilt about being somebody who made a mistake and devalued myself and devalued my family. And it took me a long time to feel proud about my children, and I worked really hard to make a comeback. That was like kind of it. It was like, I'm not gonna get thrown away. I worked really hard. I made really difficult decisions. My parents said, well, you can live at home and we'll help you. Luckily, I got pregnant with twins. Even though it made things a lot harder, it then all of a sudden became a blessing. I went into preterm labor at 5 months of being pregnant. And so my junior year was with a tutor. My boyfriend at the time, he finished too. We both finished. We went off to college. I remember that we got accepted to Worcester State to this AID program, which I'm still a massive advocate for. And the program allowed students that perhaps had more like challenging, either academically or socially, they allowed you to come in the summer prior and added support networks to integrate you into the system. Currently, my daughters are now 16-year-old twins. They're amazing. It's been really interesting to raise kids as you're raising yourself. I ended up getting married to my high school boyfriend. We got to build a family together. He did youth work too, because youth work allowed us to, it gave us the tools to have conversations. Youth work taught us how to be reflective and active listeners, things that you need in all relationships, friendships, all relationships, while being in the work and watching other people grow and helping raise other people's kids and learning about, what not to do, and use those skills with our family at home, knowing that they need reflection and they need to be listened to and they need choices, and you need to have difficult conversations as uncomfortable as you feel as a parent. You need to talk about penises and vaginas and clitorises and breasts and everything comfortably, and that's hard. It's hard as a person to put yourself out there, because I think the hardest part of having conversations that are uncomfortable is that it's not uncomfortable for them, it's uncomfortable for you. With my daughters, we've been able to use dialogue from an early age, ask questions. I use books that have really helped me have the conversation. I'm not somebody who, just has all this knowledge. I've used other resources, I use other people. My daughters, have done the Get Real Teen Council. They've been trained in being sexual health educators. My house is full of condoms. They bring other kids to get tested now. They share their condoms at school. They have started campaigns at school to talk about sexual health education. They're also youth workers already. So proud of them being so woke, right? Everything that happened up to today is the things that have impacted and developed who I am, and then hence who they are. So as hard as it is to go back and think about the pain that I went through during that era, it's made me a strong person, and it's made me an advocate. Have impact. Like, how magnificent is it to be able to work directly in the place that raised you, to be able to give back to the kids of my neighbors, or the kids I went to high school where their kids are sending now, they're sending their kids to the programs like Recreation Worcester. I do this work because I think that I'm going to treat it with reverence and respect. I'm going to do it from a place of a lens of justice, based on my lived experience, based on me raising my family here, and knowing the difference between what it's like to be treated right or wrong. Sexuality isn't just the idea of intercourse. Sexuality includes identity, it includes power, it includes race, it includes everything. You can't have this conversation in isolation. What WISH allows us to do in our community is have a genuine conversation about what is it that our young people are facing, and how can we as adults carve out spaces for them to be able to safely have these conversations, safely ask questions, access resources like healthcare around it, the opportunity to do it in spaces with other young people, have conversations. We have to make some real commitments to them, some long-term commitments to our young people. Not some of them, not the ones that are the ones that are easy to love, all of them. Until young people don't feel that as a city collectively, we won't have a two-way conversation.